Welcome back, everyone. I'm so glad you're here with us today. I'm Emma, and joining me, as always, is Jake. Hey, Jake. How are you doing?
Hey, Emma. I'm doing really well, thanks. I had a big cup of coffee this morning, so I'm feeling very energized and ready to talk.
Perfect, because we have a lot to cover today. So today's topic is entrepreneurship. Starting your own business, taking that leap, going out on your own. Jake, this is something you know quite a bit about, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been through the whole process myself. The excitement, the confusion, the sleepless nights, all of it. So I'm really happy to share what I've learned, and hopefully it helps some of our listeners who are thinking about doing the same thing.
I love that. And for anyone who just heard the word entrepreneurship and thought, that sounds complicated, don't worry. It basically just means starting and running your own business. An entrepreneur is someone who takes a risk to create something new. That's the simple version.
Right. And the word sounds fancy, but the concept is something humans have been doing forever. Street vendors, small shop owners, freelancers, they're all entrepreneurs in their own way. You don't have to be building the next big tech company to count.
Exactly. So, Jake, let's start at the very beginning. What made you want to start your own business? What was that moment, the spark, as they say?
So for me, it actually came from frustration. I was working a regular 9-to-5 job, the typical office situation, and I kept seeing problems that nobody was solving. I thought, I could do this better. And eventually I got tired of waiting for someone else to fix those problems, so I decided to try it myself.
Oh, I think that's such a common story. That feeling of, I can do this better. It's almost like an itch you can't stop scratching, right? You just can't ignore it anymore.
Exactly. That's a perfect way to put it. It's an itch, an uncomfortable feeling that keeps coming back until you do something about it. And once I made the decision to start, even though I was terrified, I actually felt relieved. Like, finally, I'm doing something.
That's really interesting. Terrified, but relieved at the same time. Those two feelings seem opposite, but I think a lot of people understand exactly what you mean. So, what was the first practical step you took? What do you actually do first when you decide to start a business?
Great question. So honestly, the very first thing I did was just write things down. Not a fancy business plan, just notes. What's the idea? Who would pay for it? Why would they choose me over someone else? Those 3 questions alone will keep you busy for a while.
I like that approach because it sounds manageable. A lot of people hear business plan and immediately picture a huge document with charts and financial projections, and they just shut down before they even start.
Yeah, the formal business plan is important eventually. We'll talk about that. But in the very beginning, you just need clarity. Clarity means having a clear picture of what you're doing and why. Without that, everything else falls apart.
So let's dig into that idea a little more. How do you figure out if your business idea is actually good? Like, how do you know it's not just a good idea in your head, but something people will actually pay money for?
This is where a lot of people make their first big mistake. They fall in love with their idea without testing it. And I totally did this too, by the way. My first instinct was to spend months building everything perfectly before showing anyone. Terrible idea.
Oh no, what happened?
So I spent about 3 months building this service, getting everything set up, making it look professional. And then when I showed it to potential customers, half of them said, yeah, this is fine, but what I actually need is this completely different thing. It was a gut punch. A gut punch means something that really hits you hard emotionally, like a punch to the stomach.
Ouch, that must have been really discouraging. But I imagine you learned a lot from that experience?
Hugely. The lesson is, talk to real people before you build anything. Even just 10 conversations with your potential customers can save you months of wasted work. Ask them what problems they have, not whether they like your solution. Because people are polite. They'll say your idea sounds great, but that doesn't mean they'll pay for it.
That's such a smart distinction. People will say, "Oh, that's interesting," or "That sounds cool," but actual money is the real test of whether they want it.
Exactly. There's a saying in the startup world, charge early. Because the moment you ask someone to hand over real money, you learn so much more about whether your idea works than from any amount of free feedback.
That's a really bold move, though, isn't it? Charging people before you even have a finished product? Some people might feel uncomfortable doing that. Is that normal practice?
It's actually more common than people think. There's even a term for it, a pre-sale or pre-order. You're basically saying, here's what I'm building. Pay me now, and I'll deliver it by this date. If people say yes, great. You have customers and income. If nobody bites, meaning nobody agrees to pay, that's also incredibly valuable information.
Right, because then you know you need to rethink before investing more time and money. It's almost like a safety net, a way to catch yourself before you fall too far.
Perfectly said. And it takes courage, for sure. But most entrepreneurs who've been through the process will tell you, fail fast and fail small. Don't wait 2 years to find out your idea doesn't work. Find out in 2 weeks, if possible.
Fail fast. That's a phrase you hear a lot in the business world. For our listeners, it doesn't mean you want to fail. It means you want to discover problems as early as possible, when they're still cheap and easy to fix.
Right. It's about speed of learning, not celebration of failure. Nobody enjoys failing. But catching a small mistake early is so much better than catching a massive mistake later when you've already invested everything.
Okay, so let's say someone has done the research. They've talked to people, they've tested their idea, and there's genuine interest. What's the next big thing they need to think about?
So at that point, you really need to think about the business model. That's basically how you make money. It sounds obvious, but you'd be shocked how many people start businesses without being really clear on this. Like, are you selling a product, offering a service, charging a subscription fee every month, taking a percentage of each transaction?
And each of those works very differently in terms of how you run the business day to day, right?
Completely differently. A subscription model, for example, is amazing because you have predictable income every month. Predictable means you can plan ahead because you know roughly how much money is coming in. But getting people to commit to a monthly payment is harder than getting them to make a one-time purchase.
Whereas with a one-time purchase, it might be easier to get that first sale, but then you're always hunting for new customers.
Exactly. Yeah. Both have pros and cons. The point is, you need to understand which model fits your type of business and your type of customer. And it's okay to experiment a little in the early stages.
Now, I want to ask about something that I think stops a lot of people from even taking that first step, and that's money. Funding, investment, capital, call it what you want. How do most people actually pay for starting a business?
So there are a few different paths. The most common one, especially for small businesses, is what's called bootstrapping. That means you fund the business yourself, using your own savings, maybe working a side job to keep income coming in while you build. No outside investors, no loans, just you and your money.
And bootstrapping, I love that word. It comes from the old phrase, pulling yourself up by your bootstraps, which means doing something entirely through your own effort, without help from others.
Right. And it's tough, but it has a huge advantage. You keep full control. Nobody else owns a piece of your business. Nobody can tell you what to do. That independence is something a lot of entrepreneurs really value.
But bootstrapping isn't always an option, is it? Some businesses need significant upfront investment. Equipment, technology, space. So what are the other routes?
So another common route is getting a small business loan from a bank. You borrow money, you agree to pay it back with interest over time. It's more traditional. Then there's also finding an investor, someone who gives you money in exchange for a share of your company. That share is called equity.
And investors can be really helpful beyond just the money, right? They often bring experience, connections, contacts in the industry.
Absolutely. The good ones do.
A great investor isn't just a wallet. They're a mentor, a connector, someone who's been through it before and can help you avoid mistakes. But, and this is a big but, you're also giving up some ownership and some control. Every decision you make might now involve someone else's opinion.
So it's a trade-off. You get resources and support, but you give up a degree of freedom. That's a really personal decision, depending on what kind of business owner you want to be.
Completely personal. And neither option is wrong. It really depends on your personality, your industry, and how quickly you need to grow. Some businesses need to scale fast. Scale means grow quickly and handle much more volume. And for those, outside investment often makes sense.
Let's switch gears a little bit. I want to talk about the mental and emotional side of entrepreneurship because I feel like that doesn't get discussed enough. It's not just about business plans and funding. It's also about what's happening in your head. Jake, how did you handle the emotional roller coaster?
Oh, man. Okay, so the emotional side is real, very real. And I don't think enough people talk about it honestly. There are days when you feel like you're on top of the world. A deal comes through, a customer loves your product, something clicks, and then the very next day, something goes wrong and you feel completely lost.
That swing between highs and lows, that emotional roller coaster, sounds exhausting. How do you stay stable through that?
A few things helped me. First, having a routine. When everything outside feels chaotic, a personal routine gives you an anchor, something steady to hold on to. Second, having people around you who understand what you're going through. Other entrepreneurs, a mentor, even just a friend who listens without judgment.
That community aspect is so important, isn't it? Because I think a lot of people assume entrepreneurship is this solo journey, just one person against the world. But it sounds like the most successful people actually build a strong support network around themselves.
100%. The lone genius in a garage idea is mostly a myth. Behind almost every successful entrepreneur, there are mentors, advisors, supportive partners, helpful communities. Nobody really does it completely alone, even if it looks that way from the outside.
And I imagine self-doubt is a huge part of that emotional journey too. That feeling of, am I actually good enough to do this?
Oh, constantly. There's actually a name for it, imposter syndrome. It's the feeling that you're not qualified, that you somehow got lucky, and that at any moment people will figure out you don't really know what you're doing. A lot of very successful people experience this regularly.
That's actually reassuring to hear, right? Like, if even successful people feel that way, then it's okay to feel it too. The key is probably not letting it stop you from moving forward.
Exactly. Feeling it is normal. Acting on it, meaning letting it convince you to quit, that's the danger. The goal is to notice the feeling, acknowledge it, and keep going anyway. That's what resilience is. Resilience means the ability to recover from difficulty and keep pushing forward.
I love that. Let's talk about something more practical now. Building a team. At some point, if a business grows, you can't do everything yourself. How do you know when it's time to hire people? And how do you find the right ones?
This is one of the hardest decisions in early stage business, honestly. A lot of entrepreneurs, myself included, hold on too long. You keep thinking, I can handle this, I'll just work a few more hours. But at some point, that stops working. You hit a ceiling, a limit you can't break through alone.
And what are the signs that you've hit that ceiling? How do you recognize it?
The clearest sign is when important things start falling through the cracks. Fall through the cracks means getting overlooked, forgotten. Things that should be done just aren't getting done because there aren't enough hours in the day. When that starts happening regularly, it's time to get help.
And when it comes to hiring, what's the most important thing to look for in an early employee or team member?
Attitude over skills, in most cases. Obviously, you need some baseline competence. A baseline is the minimum level you need. But skills can be taught. Someone who is curious, hardworking, adaptable, meaning they can adjust to changing situations, and genuinely believes in what you're building, that's priceless.
I completely agree with that. And I think the culture of a company, the kind of environment and values you create, is shaped so heavily by those first few people you bring on board.
Massively. The first 5 or 10 people at a company basically set the culture for everyone who comes after. So those early hiring decisions carry a lot of weight. You want people who share your values, not just people who can do the job.
Okay, I want to bring up something that might be a sensitive topic for some listeners, but it's so important. Failure. Most businesses fail. That's just a statistical reality. How should someone mentally prepare for the possibility that their business might not work?
So I think the first thing is reframing how you think about failure. In many cultures, failure is seen as shameful, something to hide. But in the entrepreneurship world, it's increasingly seen as part of the learning process. Most successful entrepreneurs have at least one failed business in their history.
And reframing. That's a great word. It means looking at something from a different angle, changing the mental frame around it so you see it differently.
Right. If you frame failure as I'm a loser, that's paralyzing. If you frame it as I learned things that I couldn't have learned any other way, that's empowering. Same experience, completely different meaning.
That said, I don't think we should romanticize failure too much, right? It's not something to pursue or be careless about. It's something to learn from, but you should still do everything you can to succeed.
Totally agree. There's a version of embrace failure culture that goes too far and almost makes it seem cool to fail. That's not the point. The point is, don't let the fear of failure stop you from trying. And if failure does happen, extract every possible lesson from it. Extract means take out, pull out, get every bit of value you can from the experience.
Perfect. Now, for any listeners who might be thinking, okay, this all sounds great, but I have a full-time job and a family and responsibilities. Is entrepreneurship even realistic for me? What would you say to them?
I'd say start small, start slow, and start on the side. You don't have to quit your job to test an idea. So many successful businesses started as side projects, things people worked on in evenings and weekends while keeping their main income. Only once the side project started making real money did they make the leap.
That's such a sensible, lower-risk approach. And it also gives you time to learn without the panic of having zero income. Because financial pressure can really cloud your judgment, make it harder to think clearly.
Absolutely. When you're desperate for money, you make bad decisions. You take on the wrong clients. You underprice your work. You rush things that need time. Having a financial cushion meaning a buffer, something that protects you, gives you the freedom to make better decisions.
So patience is really a superpower in entrepreneurship, it sounds like.
One of the biggest ones, yeah. Along with persistence. That's the ability to keep going even when things are hard. And adaptability, being willing to change your approach when something isn't working. Those three, patience, persistence, adaptability, if you have those, you have a real shot.
I love that trio. Before we start to wrap up, I want to ask about something very specific and very relevant to our audience, which is entrepreneurship in a second language. A lot of our listeners are either doing business in English or thinking about it. What are your thoughts on that challenge?
It's a real challenge, but also a real opportunity. Because when you're operating in a second language, you develop skills that native speakers often take for granted. Careful listening, thinking before you speak, being very precise with your words. Those are actually fantastic business communication skills.
That's a beautiful perspective. And I think the fear of making mistakes in English stops some people from networking, from pitching their ideas, from putting themselves out there. What would you say to someone who feels held back by that?
I'd say people care far more about your ideas and your attitude than your grammar. Yes, you need to be understood. Clarity matters. Being clear and easy to understand is important. But a compelling idea explained in imperfect English will beat a boring idea in perfect English every single time.
Yes, that's so true. The substance matters more than the surface. And honestly, making the effort to communicate across languages shows a kind of courage that people respect.
Completely. And there's also the practical side. If you're building a business that operates internationally, being multilingual is a genuine competitive advantage. Competitive advantage means something that puts you ahead of your rivals, your competition.
All right, Jake, final question. And I want you to be honest. If you could go back and give your younger self one piece of advice before starting your first business, what would it be?
Just one? Okay. I think it would be start before you feel ready. Because you're never going to feel 100% ready. There's always one more thing to research, one more skill to develop, one more thing to prepare. At some point, you just have to jump and build your parachute on the way down.
Build your parachute on the way down? I love that image. It's terrifying, but also kind of exciting, right?
That's entrepreneurship in a nutshell. Terrifying and exciting, often at the exact same time. But when it works, even partially, there's nothing quite like the feeling of having built something that didn't exist before, something that helps people, that creates value, that you made happen through your own effort. It's genuinely one of the best feelings in the world.
That gave me chills. I think that's a perfect note to start wrapping up on. Jake, this has been such a rich conversation. Thank you so much for being so open and honest about your experience. I think our listeners got a lot of real, practical, useful insight today.
It was my pleasure, Emma. And to anyone out there who has an idea they've been sitting on, just start. Even one small step this week. Talk to one potential customer. Write down your idea. Do 1 hour of research. Momentum starts with motion.
Momentum starts with motion. Write that one down, everyone. Okay, so let me do a quick recap of some of the key ideas we covered today. We talked about testing your idea early and talking to real customers before building anything. We talked about different ways to fund a business, bootstrapping, loans, investors. We covered the emotional side, including imposter syndrome and the importance of resilience. We discussed building a team, hiring for attitude, and starting small if you have other responsibilities. And we touched on the fact that failure isn't the end. It's a teacher.
Great summary. And I'd add, enjoy the journey. The destination matters, but the process of building something, the daily problem solving, the creativity, the growth, that's where most of the real value is. Don't be so focused on the finish line that you miss everything in between.
Beautifully said. And for all of you listening and watching today, whether you're dreaming of starting a business, already in the middle of building one, or just learning English and exploring new ideas, thank you so much for spending this time with us. We genuinely appreciate every single one of you.
And hey, your English is better than you think it is. Trust the process.
On that note, take care of yourselves, keep learning, keep growing, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.
See you next time, everyone.